Hello and welcome to the breakout session number 2. So it's actually about compensation variable pay. I'll try to take you through what is new in the new release that is coming. So let's get started with all that. And by the way, my name is Peter. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been here for quite some years now and been doing most likely compensation variable pay all the time, along with benefit and a few other things. So that's why I'm standing here today. Good. So we'll have it, and we'll have the most important topics. There's not that many this time, but then we will go into the other future releases and then some deep dive topics as well. But one of the most important topics, I don't know whether any of you have had the question, could you please tell me what has been changed within a form when we're talking about compensation, when we're talking about variable pay? A lot of that actually prior to this release were quite some work that you actually would have to do it, because you'll have to go through the audit log, you will have to go through all of that. You are now having a possibility where you actually can enable an audit feature for up to 10 fields. For those of you that thinks, okay, we are now having a combined template, so I would have 3 times 10. No, it is per template, even if it's a combined one. For the time being, I can't promise you, but I would say in the next release, you probably would see that the number has been raised. So that is normally how it works. Then you turn on the audit, and then you're having a possibility where you actually, as a planner, can export the change. So you wouldn't have to go to your admin and ask them to take out all of that information. So you could easily do it this way. And of course, we can strongly recommend that you start using it. The one from the audit, you would really, the standard audit log, you would really have to be, say, well acquainted with the system to be able to use that one. Here you would actually be seeing it, and you will have that possibility as well. Again, do remember that when you're doing it from the forms, when you're doing it there, then it's respecting the permissions as well. Whereas the other was a general audit. So then you just couldn't give that one out to everyone. Okay. Filters, advanced filters. This is actually going to replace the filters that you have seen so far. It started already the last release. It's going to be more or less opt-out now. That means that you actually would have to do something actively as of June the 2nd, if you don't want to use the advanced filters. You do have a year still where you actually can make a decision that you don't want to use the active filters. For those of you that is running the process currently and is still running across the 2nd of June, you would have to do something on the day where they actually put it onto the system. You would have to go to advanced settings, and then you would have to untick it. Else, your users would be using the advanced filters as of that date. In the company settings, there's one that's called Enable Advanced Executive Review Filters. It has been there for quite some time, but now, as of the 2nd of June, it will be pre-filled for every one of you. So you would have to go in there, and you would actually have to untick it. Unticking it just means that you would be giving yet another year where you would have a possibility to use the old ones. As of the first release for next year, it would be the advanced filters that would be used all over. And that means that this one would then be removed from the company settings, so you wouldn't have a chance to do anything after that point. Running the advanced filters as well, you would have to remember that under miscellaneous permissions, there's quite some settings that you would have to look at as well. The ones that you would have to look at there is actually, you would have to make a decision about whether the ones actually can or cannot go in, whether they can share the filters, whether there is a possibility to share those filters, and who can actually create them as well. So those settings that you would be seeing here is the one that you would have you would have to decide what to do. In most cases, you're not allowing them or allowing the users themselves to actually to delete the filters, because then they would have a possibility to go in and deleting for everyone. Okay. So those are one of the important things that you would have to be paying attention to, especially. Okay. Then any of you that actually have had the possibility or have had the possibility to just to consider and think, okay, I made a change to something, and now I'm testing that one, but I would like to actually to go back to what I had before, because the change that I made didn't work out the way that I thought. You have had that with the versions of the data model. That means you haven't had that, but we have had that on your behalf. So that was actually something we have had that possibility for quite a long time. And you would have that as well if you're using variable pay and then using the objectives and using the objectives as well, because they would be copied for every year. So you actually would have a possibility to see which ones were actually used over the year. Now you would have a possibility as well to where you're saying, okay, for each of your template, you would have a possibility to see the versions of it. I must admit, there's one thing I haven't tested yet. I haven't tested to try to make one small change, make a new small change 10 minutes after, and then whether that actually would give it. So you would get a lot of, let's say, different versions that you actually would have to more or less revert back to. But you're having that possibility as well. You can even download the template. Again, downloading the template would normally be what we would be doing, and then when we are moving things from one instance to another. There's only one way that you actually can more or less upload a new template in your system. You can't go back into provisioning where you just would be replacing it with all the coding directly. So if you want to do it, then you would more or less have to create a new plan or new template. And for those of you at least that has worked with me, I have told that you should be careful about how many of those that you actually are making, especially within your productive environment. There's one thing you can't do when you first have created a template: you can't delete it by yourself. We can't delete it either. If you by any means would have to delete it, then you would have to contact SuccessFactors. But you would have a possibility to download it, and then you would have a possibility as well to look into the XML coding behind it. There are still a lot of things that would have to be done directly in the XML coding. All of the things that would be for the integrations, all of that would still be within the XML coding. So you will be seeing that as well if you download it. It is, I would say, convenient that you could do it this way. You wouldn't have to ask us to download and give it to you or go revert back to a new version. The ones of you that has worked with managed business configuration, now I'm talking about EC as well, would know that you can make changes to, let's say, the portlets. That means you could actually make changes yourself as a customer to portlets like the compensation information portlet, to the job information portlet, whatsoever. You can actually make that by yourself. That does not trigger, if you look from the data model perspective, a new version in the back end of the data model. So that actually would just make the change, and you wouldn't have a possibility to go back to the one that you had before. You would have the version prior to whatever changes. If you made one change, saved it, made another change, saved it, then you would still go back to the one that were before the first change you made. So you wouldn't have that possibility. It is yet to decide or yet to test how that is working. We don't know that yet. We would have to test that one out. But just again, you would have that possibility now. Centralized services, and I'm just thinking, yeah, centralized services. SuccessFactors is trying to take a lot of things that it actually is import, the UI control and all that stuff, and they are actually putting that into one bucket and saying that is the centralized services. That is where you're actually having the communications. That is where the systems is actually talking to the other parts of the system and having integrations working out from that one. Since this, you would now have a possibility to run the promotion. So you would have promotion functionality as well. So you would be running, or that would be through the centralized services. For you as a customer, it shouldn't make any difference. We will have another slide as well in a moment, where I actually would be telling things that is important for compensation. But again, centralized services, you can still opt out of it. That means you can actually decide that you don't want to use it. I can't see, for the time being, I can't see a reason why you shouldn't be using it. But there's a possibility to go out of that, or take out, not use it, or whatever you would like to call it. So this is for the promotions. Okay. Any of you running variable pay that actually would have the bonus details report? Normally, we would be telling you as a customers as well that there's an executive review report that normally would have a lot of all of the information. There's a standard report that's actually called the bonus payout details report. That one has, until this release, not had any information on the assignment level. That means that you couldn't see any of the detail levels. As of now, there's coming a few fields where individual calculate amount, percentage, and so on. Those fields are now available as per within that report. So that means that you would have a possibility to use it, and you would as well have a possibility to use it as a, let's say, backup. Again, executive review is normally a good way of handling it, but there's a possibility that you can use that report as well. And now it has more information in it. Okay. Last release, SuccessFactors implemented that you actually had a possibility, or didn't have a possibility, to run your jobs again, like an update job, like any of those, before the prior one has stopped. That was seen from the UI perspective. Now the same counts for the backend. That means whenever we are scheduling the job for you, those jobs hasn't been put into the, let's say, the section still where you could schedule them by yourself, but we are expecting that that would happen at least in the next release, not in the one to come here, but at the end of the year. So hopefully you would have more jobs that you could schedule by yourself. But now it would do the same. That means you actually would cancel the second job, and then we would send out an email saying, okay, the second job, you can't have that running because there's one of the same type that is running already. Okay. The growth portfolio, that means the competencies and all that stuff of the employees, that can be enabled, or can now be enabled. And we would have a possibility as well to make a direct link to that one. The 3 dots that you're seeing here, for those of you have been through implementations already, would know that you normally, or we recommend that you would have things like compensation information as one of the things that you could access throughout those 3 dots. It could be job information, it could be other parts from EC directly. The good part about it is that you could then access it directly from the form, and you wouldn't have to more or less leave the form and go into EC. Okay, so now you can actually have it as a growth portfolio. There's 1 or 2 things that you would have to consider, or have to do that. In the advanced settings, there's one that you would have to tick, and then there's an RBP settings as well for that one. That would have to be done. Okay. Routing a form. I don't know whether some of you have tried from time to time to route a form. That means routing from one step to another step. And then you have had forms in different steps. Then if you just say that you want to route the form to the next step, then if you have in step 2, 3, and 4, then it would, the 2s would be to 3, the 3 to 4, and so on. Now you can select what step you actually want to route for. Again, that is per template, and it's actually, I would say, quite convenient that you're having that possibility to do that right now. Okay, executive review. Yeah, the HR manager, matrix manager, or the custom manager can now be used as filters within that one as well. They were not there before. They are now available, and you can now use them, and you can then select it directly by HR report, custom managers, and so on. You can't use whatever custom managers that you have had or created as relationships yet to be filtering upon. So that means that you are having a possibility to say, okay, I would like to see only the HR reports and see the HR reports of a certain user. Sorry, the users of an HR report, sorry, to phrase it correctly. Again, since it's from within the executive review, then it should respect your RBP permissions as well. So it wouldn't allow you just to see all of the users of the HR report or the HR business partner at the top level. So you would be seeing the entire way through down through the organization. So it should take care of that as well. Okay, reward and recognition. For those of you running reward and recognition, this is a change and it could have a significant impact on you. It says as well, the impact here is low. Yes, the impact itself is low, but there's one thing that you would have to consider. Normally, you would be saying that you would have a budget per department, per group, per whatever. But we are having especially one big customer that would have one budget only for the entire organization. Then this means that you actually are saying, okay, if you want to nominate, if I want to more or less approve for one employee using that budget, then I'm looking for anyone else. That means that I don't have a possibility to nominate more than one at a time. If you're within a small organization, then there shouldn't be any issue, any problems. But if you're having one common budget, then that one could be, let's say, a little bit annoying, to put it this way. We haven't seen anything about how they actually are going to or intending to solve that one yet. But there would be at least one of our customers that would feel this. And hopefully, if you have it, it wouldn't be for you as well. If you're running easy and you're having reward and recognition as well, you're having a possibility to have jobs running that is actually for milestone, for anniversaries, for whatever. So you actually would automatically create an award to those. If you're having this one job running, then now it would actually say it would fail if it's some of the points that you're seeing here, where there's no point associated to it, nothing associated to it, then it would fail, and then it would send an email automatically to the ones that are actually set as responsible for that award. So then they would get that information as well. Okay. For those of you that is running reward and recognition, I don't know whether any of you in here are doing that, but you're having a possibility as well where it actually could be monetary awards. It could be something like thank you awards, or it could be point-based awards. Prior to this release, if you had a point-based award, that means that you would be using your points as a redemption partner that actually your company has had an agreement with. And then you say, okay, I bought something, or I used my point for a flight or something, and that one was suddenly canceled or anything, then you would have to get your points back. Prior to this release, the only way of getting those back would have to be that the redemption partner would have to send information back to your company, and then they would have to put it in automatically, manually. Now you could use it and use the possibility actually to have it connected, and then you could put those points back into the account of the employees. So if you're having a, let's say, claim or whatever against something that you bought and you just got your points back, then you would have a possibility to get them automatically returned to your account or your wallet for this one. Okay. This one. I do sincerely love this one. And even though, again, it's marked as low, I don't know whether any of you had tried or been in a situation where you actually would have to more or less recall or change something to a form that has been completed. Where you have generated statements, and probably for someone, it could be 5 employees, it could be 10, it could be 50, it could be whatever number, then you would have to recall the statements first before you actually moved it back, since you wouldn't know which one actually was supposed to be changed. By doing it right now, it would automatically recall the statements. That means that if they are completed, then, and you're routing them backwards, then it would recall the statements. You, as the one that is doing that, would get an email as well saying that the statements for this template or this form has been recalled. Again, that puts a pressure upon you whenever you have made the change, and whenever you have done whatever you're supposed to do, then you would have to remember to complete it, and then you would have to generate again the statements. Generating the statements can be done, as you know, by employee, by manager, and it could be done by template. So it shouldn't be that hard. You just have to remember that as a part of your process. If you're doing that, then please remember that you would actually have to generate them once again. But you believe me when I'm telling you that we have had customers as well where they actually have made corrections and then they've forgotten to, let's say, regenerate the statements. So it is actually that one as well. Visual changes, yes. This one, you can't read it. It's about propagation. So there's a change to what it actually says, whether you are going to propagate forward. And it's only for the compensation changes. Now it's more precise in that regards. So that is one of those. And then you're having multiple business goals. And it's actually a, let's say, textual changes as well. This one, for variable pay, again, this is minor one, noted as minor one down here. If you're manually updating your variable pay, that means your history, then today, by default, when you're going into that one, it would be marked with the ones where it says only changed records and do not complete or do not update completed forms. Now it actually would give you a warning again if you remove those and say, okay, are you sure that you want to update every one of them? First of all, it would take time. Secondly, you could risk that you would have to run a calc. That means that you actually could have changes as well. So just be aware of that. So it's just a help to you that you actually would have a possibility as well, just to say, okay, you're getting a warning for that one as well. Okay. Yes. Homepage cards. That means that you're actually having now possibilities as well for the compensation statement, and from our side, Spot Award, congratulations, that it can actually be placed as a homepage card where you actually would say, okay, you would have a possibility just to click upon it and then you would be seeing it. Some of you have used parts of it already. That means that if and when the functionality about that you have now generated a statement or generated something, then it would be visible for a certain number of days, a certain number of periods, or until you actually click it the first time, and then it would not be there anymore. Then you would have to find it the normal way. So it's just an extension to that functionality actually, and you're having that one as well. Whereas then the Spot Awards, congratulations. So they are now including that package as well. Okay. Any one of you remembering what I told the last time about business rules? Because we talked a lot about business rules last time, that they actually were going away from the general. So it wouldn't be a general specific, the rules would be more or less grouped into, that's easy rules, it could be time rules, it could be whatever. Now we have come to the ones where it's actually about compensation of variable pay. So now the basic rule that you normally would have changed or would have used, then that one is now either a compensation and or a variable pay rule. The system would, as it did for the other ones, would tell you that it has tried to convert it if it hasn't done it by itself. Or it would give you a warning that is actually you should be doing something as well. But again, this is about that you actually are saying, okay, we are going to decide it's not a basic rule, but it's a compensation and variable pay rule. What it does in the back end, it then validates what kind of functionality from the business rule can you actually be using. Remember, there's still the demand for you to decide whether it's a eligibility rule, where it's compensation eligibility and or variable pay eligibility rule. That is not taken away using this. Where compensation eligibility rules is looking at the data at the current moment, whereas variable pay eligibility rules are allowing you to look backwards. So those would still, you would still have to give that to the business rules, but now we'll just come to those rule types or the grouping of the rules itself. Okay. Again, as I said before, centralized services, they are now as well there for the compensation and for the low benefits. There's a possibility, as well as I said, that you can opt out of that one. If you're facing any issues, if you're facing anything, then you would have a possibility to more or less decide that you don't want to be part of that one as well. The chance of that there should be something wrong should hopefully be relatively small. We can't guarantee that. We have seen so far that there has been a few known issues with that at this point. One of the points that you probably would be seeing or probably would be hearing about or could risk hearing about would be the way when we actually are using the publish as well back into EC. One part that the centralized services has used or is actually enforcing now is that you actually would validate whether you actually have a compensation information record. That means the blank one first. And before you actually put in the pay components. Since that is changed, that was how it worked until this release. Now you can actually create, without having to create, the compensation information record first. And there might be something in that perspective. So just if you're importing directly into your compensation in EC, then be aware of that as well. We're using the same functionality when we're publishing back from compensation and or variable pay. It is actually creating the compensation information record first, and then it's putting in the pay components afterwards. And as always, there's a route map that actually would tell you something about what is actually going to happen in the future. What is the points or what is the things that actually SuccessFactors think would be the idea, what would be the things that actually would come in the future. We would emphasize that you would go in and you would have a look at that one. Actually, it could be quite convenient. It could be good as well. It could help you actually plan for if you're going to make updates or updates to your current functionality as well. Putting it onto the route map is not a guarantee that it actually would be there at that point or that date. It is a intention that it actually would be there at some point. So it's not a written guarantee that you would have it at any given point as well. Okay. Any questions? Did I manage within the 2 minutes before?
You still have to until 25, so you're
oh,
7 minutes.
Okay. Originally it was 20, wasn't it? Okay, sorry. Should have spoken a little longer. Any from anyone online? Nope.
It was all clear.
Either it was clear or I didn't explain it well enough then, so no one understood it. No, but again, just consider those things about just by the business rule. Please do consider those, because you will see it in the list at the moment when you actually are going to look into those as well. And the one with the filtering. This one would be good, and you could actually use that one in your daily basis. I'm just sure whether I'm allowed to let you out, disturb the other ones. Yes, sorry.
Something else.
No, I don't know. Then I would need an access to a system. Do you have the system open? No. No. Again, downloading the template. Yes, don't waste too much time upon it. It could be fun if you really are within or into the XML coding, actually to have a look at that one as well. But don't spend too much time upon it, please. Okay. And then whenever we're talking about templates as well, if you really think that you're good at XML, if you're good at things and you would like, or you would have a possibility to work with it as well, just remember there's another place where you actually could be benefiting from your skills within XML. Then that would be that you actually could make even fancier looking statements, because then you wouldn't have to rely upon the statements that is actually the functionality that is the standard statement. Just remember one thing. When you make a custom adjustment to it, that means you download it, make adjustments, and then upload it once, then you would have to do that from now on. You can't go back. So that is one of those. This doesn't have the same here. So that is not part of that one as well. Yep. Yep. The audit, again, as I said before, it would at least, or unfortunately, take away some of the questions that I would have from customers. Say, okay, we simply don't understand this because something changed or someone did something at some point. Now you would have a possibility actually to go in and have a look at it.